Tim Gallaudet is a retired Rear Admiral, also a former administrator of NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, a government institution, and a lifelong lover of the ocean and water. Thank you for coming to EarthX, Tim.
It's great to be here, Jurriaan. Thanks.
And welcome to this conversation. So, if you spent your career a few decades about or in the water, can you tell me how that started?
Well, sure. Like you, I lived in Southern California, and that exposed me to the ocean. I was a competitive swimmer, swam a lot of rough water swims, and I liked to surf, and that just instilled in me a love for the ocean and the coast, and I wanted to do that for a living. I wanted to study the ocean and work on it, and that led me to Scripps Institution of Oceanography, and so I started looking for places where I could go get a PhD there, and, an undergraduate institution that could prepare me for it. And it turned out the Naval Academy was the best place because they had a scholarship for a master's degree program upon graduation, just one. And so I applied to the Academy, I studied oceanography, and I got that scholarship, and the rest is kind of history.
Yes. And so, I mean, the ocean, of course, so few of us realize in day-to-day life that the ocean is most of the planet, of course. And despite we live on land all the time, but life is mostly in the oceans. So now that we're talking about these difficult topics of sustainability and biodiversity, how important is the ocean, and how important is it to know what's going on in the ocean?
Well, of course, the ocean is the regulator for the Earth's climate. It has the most amount of biomass in the planet, and it covers most of the planet. And at the same time, most of it is unknown. Mm-hmm. We've only mapped 25% of the seabed around the world, and we've only explored not even 10% of the ocean volume. And so that's why I've been a big champion for ocean exploration and research. And we led a program at NOAA, the National Program for Ocean Exploration, and it's still going strong. In fact, just today during our conference, NOAA's ship Oceanus Explorer is out in the Pacific, live streaming video from their remotely operated vehicles on the things they're seeing on the seafloor and the water column, the shipwrecks around Midway, from the Battle of Midway, and it's all being live streamed to the world right now. And really, I think that program's important.
How deep is that?
I think several miles down. I don't know the exact depth. I think maybe 3,000 meters, maybe.
How deep have you been in the ocean?
Not very deep, actually. I've been on, well, first of all, I've been on Robert Ballard's ship, the Nautilus, and he's a big fan of remotely operated vehicles and telepresence. I've not been very deep. The deepest in a submersible I've been is 300 feet in Lake Huron. Mm-hmm. And I've been on a Navy submarine in the Arctic and a submarine in the Atlantic, 2 submarines in the Atlantic, and I can't tell you how deep we went. It's classified, but enough to know what's going on. How about that?
That's fair enough. So, if you were, from what you understand from the ocean so far, what are critical lessons that we should learn there from your understanding and expertise so far? I mean, you already told us there's so much we need to learn more.
Right. Well, here's what we did at NOAA when I was the acting administrator is we tried to address these ocean issues that we thought were important. One, as I mentioned, is knowing the ocean better. And that involved mapping, exploring, and characterizing the ocean with ships with multi-beam sonar, remotely operated vehicles, just getting an understanding of what the ocean is. And we did that. We actually got President Trump to sign a presidential memorandum that directed us to develop a national strategy to map and explore the ocean and establish a national council, an interagency council that NOAA leads. And it's in existence now. That got approved, we did it, and we went from 40% or so of the U.S. exclusive economic zone mapped to now over 50. And actually the Biden administration continued with it. That's how important it was. And now this administration, again, NOAA is continuing it. As I mentioned, the Oceanus Explorer is out in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. So knowing the ocean was important. Why is that? Well, then that helps you manage its resources, like fisheries, for example, as well. And in fact, mapping the ocean is important because you have to understand the habitat to manage fisheries well. It's also important for things like safety of navigation and sustainable use of the ocean, marine transportation. 90% of the world's commerce goes by sea lines of transportation and navigation. And then of course, protecting biodiversity and endangered species, mapping the ocean and knowing where habitats are allows us to do that. So that was one priority. Another priority was conservation. And in fact, we put forward a national strategy to clean up marine litter and marine debris. And it was the first interagency national strategy to do that. We also implemented and developed and implemented a strategy to address this issue of coral loss. And it's a coral loss disease in the Caribbean, and we put in place actions to prevent it from spreading around the world. And there was conservation. And then finally, there's the blue economy aspects of the ocean. And for example, we had President Trump sign an executive order on seafood competitiveness, and embodied in that was also conservation measures and ensuring our fisheries, the U.S. fisheries that NOAA manages, are still the gold standard in the world for conservation. And I just read a statistic the other day that of the 422 fish stocks that NOAA manages, 92% of them are not overfished. And that means being overfished, and that the fish stocks will collapse. Mm-hmm. That's better than any other fishery in the world, and other nations want to be like us in that respect.
You mentioned words like sustainable use of the ocean. You mentioned conservation. Now, at the same time, what we're seeing in new development, technology that we use every day in all the devices that we use, there are these rare earth metals, minerals that we need for these devices to function. Some of those minerals can be found on the sea floor. Mm. And mining the sea is very much a debate that's going on. It's hard to see how you can do that in a way that you don't disturb, whatever's at the bottom of the sea. What do you think about that? Right.
Well, first off, critical minerals, rare earths, are absolutely essential strategically for our nation to prosper economically as well as for national defense. But I'm a big proponent of Victor Vescovo and his ocean mapping as well as his exploration missions. And he has firsthand data. Very few people do, for example. But when he was diving on I believe it was the Samuel B. Roberts, one of the shipwrecks from World War II. It may be the Johnston, either one of those. He was able to observe that when the ship wrecked, it landed near an ocean ridge and basically slid down the ridge a distance of something like 800 feet. So that was set 80 years ago. And so he went and explored the scouring area from that, and nothing had grown back in 80 years of the benthic life that was there and had been scoured.
Okay, so
that just answers your question.
That's the bad news. Yes, yeah.
Mining is not going to be good for benthic habitat, which is critical for fisheries and biodiversity. So I think we need to find other areas and sources for that important need.
Outer space?
Yes, in fact, Victor is investing in a company that intends to mine asteroids. No. So the two go together.
Yes, well, somehow, yes. But I'm glad to hear that you see a problem there. Because
absolutely.
You can easily see how we sort of will be very sorry that we did it, but then a few decades from now. So it requires concerns now, perhaps.
Right. Well, so what he collected was important data, and we need to always follow the data.
Yeah. So sustainability as itself is a controversial topic in a way that, I mean, when certain words are used, climate change, global warming, particularly in the US, the conversation, gets very polarized very soon. And I've seen that sometimes you engage in these conversations, and I understand because you want to try to bridge, I suppose, and explain certain perspectives. But how do you think we should have that debate? You're clearly somebody who wants to conserve important nature, but maybe you also don't like certain words. So what is your perspective on that?
Well, Jurriaan, I follow the data and the science. And unfortunately, the whole climate narrative has strayed from the science, as well as rational thinking. And this might be controversial for your audience, but hear me out. So when we talk about energy, and big oil, the evil big oil industry. Big oil is allowing a quality of life in our country and around the world that is better than the alternative. And India has made a decision. We're not going to go net zero because they want to raise their population out of poverty. So that's a real world issue. And by the way, big oil won World War II, and you have all that. I don't think demonizing the oil industry and making people feel guilty just because they want to hop in their car and go see a friend or drive to the grocery store is not an effective strategy. What I think the discussion should be is acknowledging a few things. One is energy is important, energy security is important, and we really should be moving to an all-of-the-above energy approach and eventually transitioning to net zero when it makes sense. Same though, then when we talk about the impacts of carbon, and which are real, anthropogenic climate change is real, but people are not representing it correctly. When we talk about, for example, I mean, look at the IPCC. Go read their reports of what they have high confidence in that's actually happening because of global warming. It's not much, and certainly not more Atlantic storms. That's not occurring, or more hurricanes, or more severe storms, really. So that is not a correct fact. More storms, climate change. We should follow what's really happening. Yes, we're seeing warming, more warming days, and I won't go down an entire climate analysis here, but let's get back to the science. And I think both sides have not represented accurately, and I think being precise about when we talk about climate impacts and energy and global warming, we should be more precise about it and think strategically and more scientifically.
Okay, let me be precise. There are 8 million people dying each year, and that is caused by air pollution. Is that precise enough?
I don't know the number, but yeah, air pollution's a problem. Absolutely, yes. I mean, gosh, I grew up in Los Angeles, and I'd have days where I couldn't breathe because of the smog.
Okay, so fine. So let's do something about that. What do we do then? What is the solution to air pollution?
Oh, well, right. I think, well, there are many, and that's why we're here at this EarthX Congress of Conferences to look at climate tech, better tech, sustainability tech.
But one solution easily is an electric car.
Yeah.
Why not? In Los Angeles, that would make a huge difference.
I think that's absolutely yes. I mean, because the air quality is terrible in some of our cities.
Okay, so my problem is, why are we talking about science where you can always have different interpretations and different looks at the same data? And I follow you. I'm not saying that all these other climate scientists who have a different perspective are right. But what I don't understand is why we're not talking about clean air or clean water.
Well, we should be.
Because there is no difference of opinion anymore.
Yeah, and again, follow the data. Go look at Lake Erie and all the harmful algal blooms that arise there every year from all the nitrogen and fertilizers that run off. Yeah. So that's real data. Something should be done about that pollution. My conversation about climate does not mean I'm a fan of pollution or carbon in the atmosphere. No. Just being really sensible about the regulations and the impacts and using science and technology to drive solutions.
I respect that. I'm just surprised that we get into differences of opinion that don't really matter. Yeah. I mean, if we change the words.
Electrification is great, as long as, and again, in a way that gives people options. How about that?
Mm-hmm. And so, what gives you in where we are today? What makes you hopeful?
Oh, I'm very hopeful for a lot of reasons. One is we're getting to understand the ocean and the planet better than we ever have through technology. So autonomous systems, drones, they're allowing us to map and measure the ocean in ways that we never could. And we're getting a much more finely resolved picture of what it is. AI, and that's a broad term, and I'm familiar with it. It's not just a buzzword. I did an AI thesis in 1989, master's thesis for Scripps, and machine learning more precisely. But that is now helping us better predict the changing ocean and planet. And we haven't been able, our climate model are not great, and as well as our weather models. And I mean, they're fantastic compared to 5 decades ago, but improving our ability to predict will help us better manage, anticipate change and hazards. And so that's really great. I'm hopeful for that reason. I'm hopeful that more and more people want to get into conservation. In fact, one of the observations I made on this conference was conservation is becoming big business. Mm-hmm. Companies want to support it. In fact, I work for a nonprofit called Forest Blue. I'm on their advisory board, or board of directors rather. They're a group of special forces veterans that all have advanced diving qualifications. And their mission is to help restore the mental health of the veterans, who many have PTS, post-traumatic stress. as well as the health of the ocean. So they restore coral reefs and kelp forests and do turtle rescues during cold stun events in the Gulf of Mexico. And so it's a great mission, and they're getting investors with deep pockets, Luminox, Publix, the NFL, and soon to be the NHL. So conservation is growing, and I'm really hopeful and excited about that.
That's a beautiful example, by the way. And what are the results for the mental state of the veterans?
Oh, this is life-changing. They've come back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and we even have some British Special Forces on our team, and Marines and SEALs, and they are just energized. This is it's wonderfully fulfilling, because I also supported the Iraq and Afghanistan campaigns and was involved in supporting combat operations from aircraft carrier, and I saw the effects on these SEALs and Green Berets, and they come and do these missions, and they're just absolutely restored. It's wonderful.
What is your favorite place, in the ocean on this beautiful planet?
There's not one.
There's not one.
But my wife and I think some of our best experiences were diving in the Galapagos Islands, seeing hammerheads, sharks, and all the different coral reefs, sea life. We also had a really fantastic science mission off Guadalupe Island, Mexico, where we were identifying a population of white sharks, great white sharks, and we were observing them, doing photo identification of the individuals in the population, and it was part of a 20-year time series. But when you jump in the water in a steel cage with great white sharks, you will never forget it.
I'm sure you won't. And you better swim with dolphins. That's more gentle.
We've done that too. It's a little safer.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yes. So, what is your ultimate? What's your hope that we will be achieving? We're on this we're on an interesting trajectory with a lot of division in the world also, and also a common threat, if you like. At least there is a challenge that we need to meet somehow. If we can call it air pollution or global warming, I prefer air pollution, but in any event, there's something that needs to be done.
Oh, there is. There's decline of habitat, coral reef bleaching, and the problems are extensive, yes. But more and more people want to fix them, and that's good. And what I'm hopeful and excited about is the next generation of young people. They largely, more than past generations, want to protect the planet. And in fact, universally. It's a small minority that don't care. And in fact, my 3 daughters are examples. They're all just very energized about ocean conservation and science. And in fact, what my middle daughter is studying oceanography now as well, which I'm excited about. And my oldest daughter did a minor in marine biology, but she's majored in communications, because we need storytellers to inspire the next generation. Yes. And so I'm hopeful. In fact, the change we want to occur has to happen in attitude first, and then we'll start seeing science and applications and sustainable uses more. So if we change attitudes first, that will happen. And I found in my research that for given topics that I know about in the Navy, for example, aviation safety, it took a professional generation to go from being too macho to report a problem in the cockpit, for example, a safety problem, to then having mishaps and people die, to now making it standard procedure to report anything wrong, and it's not a black mark on your career. So that professional generation is about 25 years. So I think we're on the path where our children are going to be leading a whole new way ahead in sustainability and conservation, and I know it's going to happen.
It will get better from here because of our children.
That's right.
Thank you, Tim.
Yes, Jurriaan, thank you.